Hello, and welcome to Socially Holistic Podcast. Socially Holistic helps coaches and holistic entrepreneurs and women in heart-centered businesses make sense of social media so they can build their own online network and get more clients. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a 5-star review of this podcast. Please leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more heart-centered businesses will be successful. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Socially Holistic Podcast, episode 54. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's very special guest, Heather Day from Heather Day Wellness. Heather is a heart-centered coach, yoga teacher, and chakra specialist. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you, Holly. Good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. This was so timely. I finally, just for the first time, had received an email from a listener who was interested very much in the exact topic that I later discovered you had written a blog post on. So it was just such perfect timing. So excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's a great time for people to be thinking about this, particularly in the coaching profession. It comes up for a lot of us.
I agree. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I, like a lot of coaches, came to coaching kind of the roundabout way. I did the traditional, I have a couple of different degrees, I have a couple different certifications, and it all wasn't feeling aligned. So for me, the journey into coaching and into yoga teaching as well came kind of late in my late 20s. And from there, as soon as I got my certification, it really launched a whole transition in the way I was living my life, and eventually led me to quitting my full-time job, pursuing coaching and yoga full-time, and then eventually, as I do right now, moving to Costa Rica and pursuing living my life there, teaching yoga, coaching online, and really living the life that absolutely feels in alignment, and the life that I try to encourage my clients to live now.
I love that. Now, are you based in Costa Rica full time?
At the moment, yes. Wow. I don't know what that will hold in the future, but I know I'll be there for most of the rest of the year.
Ooh, that's very exciting. And how did that happen? How did you make the move from, I'm assuming you're originally from the U.S. to Central America?
Yeah, I was living in Montana at the time. Got to a point, honestly, in my life where a lot of different things were changing, were up in the air, and made the opportunity available to really choose, where do I want to be? How do I want to be living? What do I want to surround myself with? And I had been down to Costa Rica before, a year prior, and honestly was sitting in meditation and just asking the universe, what is next for me? And got the inspiration, go to Costa Rica. You've been wanting to, now's the time. So I took the leap and am very blessed that it has been working beautifully.
Wow. And how has your business changed since you made that huge geographical move?
Honestly, it has been absolutely incredible for my business because it has been the biggest and most tangible manifestation of what I teach, which is following your heart and following that internal guidance and becoming really, really focused and clear as to what that internal guidance is saying. And for me to move to Costa Rica and to move to this entirely different lifestyle has really allowed me to express that more clearly, to share that more authentically with my clients. And so they feel that, they resonate with that. It's also given me a bunch of different yoga teaching opportunities. Costa Rica is a yoga mecca, so I've gotten to study a lot more, as well as plan some retreats and just have a lot of different great opportunities that I never really had here in the U.S.
That's exciting. Now, from what I've seen, it looks like you're living on the coast, aren't you, in a really, really small town?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because I lived in Costa Rica years ago, back in 1996.
Okay.
So I think that gives you an idea of how long ago that was. But I was living in the city. So And again, I was in the middle of, undergrad and grad school, a completely different place in my life. So I would love to hear from you. How is it running a business, living in this small town in the middle of nowhere?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not getting any clients from the locals.
Yeah,
that's
I didn't think so.
sure. The biggest challenge for me has been the tech side of things. When I first moved down there, it took me a while to really get the lay of the land for how I was going to be able to run my business in terms of working with my clients over Skype, making sure I had a regular internet connection, all these sorts of things. Honestly, that was the biggest hurdle. Other than that, not that much has changed in terms of how I run my business online, the coaching side of things. Obviously, it's given me some great photographic fodder to inspire people. But really, it's been, once I got past the technological hurdles, which still come every once in a while when we have, minor earthquakes and the internet goes out and things like this. But I just make sure that my clients are fully on board. They know I live in the jungle. They know that periodically I am subject to some technological difficulties. And they're all super cool people anyway, so they get it, and they're pretty kind when those things happen.
That's good. That's good. I think that's one of my biggest fears, because I've lived in the jungle as well when I lived in Mexico, and there's no electricity where I lived. And so trying to run a business from there where we had, a generator because we didn't even have like real electricity, it's such a huge challenge. So I completely know what that's like.
Yeah, I have 3 forms of internet prepared at all times. So if one doesn't work, maybe the other one will.
That's excellent. I think that's probably taught you a lot about how to be really, really resourceful in your business.
Absolutely. And how to be really, really honest with my clients, because as much as I would love to be 100% totally on it and prepared at all times, I do have to be able to roll with the punches when for some reason, form of internet A keeps dropping the call. And I have to say, okay, look, I'm going to switch over to my other form of internet. Do you have 15 extra minutes? And we'll just go over.
Yeah, and I think that also has a lot to do with you being really authentic, because you're not trying to fit yourself into the cookie cutter of what, a normal business should be, or whatever that is. But, you're saying, this is who I am. I've got, these technical challenges. We might have a problem, we might not. But, if you're okay with that, then let's do this. Right. Because I like to imagine that my clients value what I'm bringing to them from my experience and my choice to live in the jungle, because I live there because it makes me the happiest, most whole person that I can be to serve them. So it's kind of a trade-off. Oh, I love that. And I love hearing your story as well. There's so many things that are kind of resonate with me in so many ways from places that I've been in my past. So
if you've lived in the jungle in Mexico, I imagine.
Yes. And loved it, and I miss it so much.
Yeah.
So was there a tipping point in your business where things kind of went from struggle to get started and get things started up to flowing?
It's, for me, what you just mentioned, that moment where I stopped trying to fit my business into any sort of mold, because I realized it doesn't. I can't. Whether or not I live in the jungle, even when I was living here in Montana, while I was struggling to try to fit myself into some sort of formula, fit my work into some sort of formula, the people who I work with don't resonate with that. So once I stopped trying to fit myself into that box and I started just being kind of, honestly, the eccentric traveler yogi that I am, then the people who really resonate with that could find me. And it's after that point that I am madly in love with all of my clients, and my yoga students have resonated so much more with what I teach and how I teach, now that I teach kind of a hodgepodge flow of just what works for me, that, it's hard to say how all of a sudden the flow starts, but it just happens in that moment, that switch.
I love that. And I think when you're really making that space to be authentic and to really express who you are, then your ideal clients will just naturally be drawn to that.
Exactly.
And then people who aren't your ideal clients will just naturally self-select and say, nope, not for me, and they'll find their help elsewhere.
Exactly. And that also takes that confidence in saying, yes, I'm putting myself out there and I will attract the most fantastic clients for me, but I'm also okay with the fact that there will be people who will unsubscribe.
Yeah.
There will be people who won't resonate. And I bless them on their way to find help with somebody who's better for them.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of confidence in yourself as a solopreneur, because I'm always hearing from women online who say, oh, a couple of people unsubscribed today, and I just think, God, that's great. First of all, don't look at your unsubscribes if it's making you feel bad, but since you did look at it, that's great, because they've just self-selected out. Now you're left with the people who really love what you do.
Exactly.
I love that. So, you live in paradise, and one of the topics that I want to discuss with you today is how to take a vacation or go on holiday when you're a solopreneur. And this is something that so many women in business, particularly solopreneurs, struggle with because they just don't know how to do it. Or they'll try to take kind of a half holiday where they're like kind of online, kind of offline, not really doing one or the other. And I just think it's so challenging for so many people to just take the time off and get that refreshment that they need and just recharging of their batteries.
Exactly. And that half vacation that you mentioned is almost worse than not taking a vacation.
I know, because you're feeling guilty about not doing the full vacation, and you're feeling guilty about not doing the full work, and so it's like nothing is working quite right.
Exactly. You just feel sapped.
Yes. So what would you say are your top tips for solopreneurs who want to take a real offline vacation?
You hit on a really great one earlier, actually, that I didn't have on my list when I wrote that original blog post, which is being super authentic with your clients and letting them know, saying, hey, I'm taking a vacation. I'm working right now to build a schedule that still serves you so that we make sure you get your sessions, we make sure you get your product on time, we make sure you get your deliverable, whatever your service is. But that's also done in a time frame that allows me some space to take a good vacation. And people of the world generally support that because they also want vacations. So they get it. But you need to be clear and you need to be willing to honestly set those boundaries.
Yes.
And do that way ahead of time so that they know what to expect. If they have other questions, if they have edits they need, whatever it might be, you can take care of that well in advance and they don't feel like you're rushing them out the door.
I think that's so important. I think so many people don't plan their year in advance. They don't schedule that time in the calendar to actually take the vacations and then know in advance that they'll be gone for that date so that they can plan ahead.
Exactly. And that also is about personal boundaries. There's this aspect of being a solopreneur where you say, I'll take a vacation later. And it never comes. Whereas if you put it in the calendar, you can plan ahead. You can get your clients ready. You can get your products ready, your launches ready, whatever you're doing, and really set yourself up for success.
Yeah, and I think boundaries, that's such a big issue for so many people, not just women in business, but just, people in general. I know for me, in my previous business, with my previous business partner, he was the kind of person that needed, if he sent an email, he needed a response within minutes. And that drove me crazy. And so now I've set up my business on purpose this time to not allow people to have those expectations of me. But I think so many people struggle with setting boundaries in business. Do you have any tips or suggestions for that, since we're on the subject?
Yeah. First and foremost, you have to be honest about what boundaries you need. Because some people are okay with a business partner who wants an email within 45 minutes. Some people are okay with that. That does not bother them. But you have to be really, really honest with yourself about what boundaries you need, what makes you feel absolutely crazy and stepped all over. What are maybe negotiable boundaries? And then where you don't really need boundaries, where you're okay with it. And then again, just honestly and authentically communicating why you need those boundaries, what sort of boundaries you expect, And then asking that other person too, how does that feel to you? Is there any boundaries that you need me to honor? How are your feelings incorporated into this scenario? My guess is your previous partner, if you had said, hey, I understand that you really want a quick response to your email. Asking me to give you a response within 45 minutes feels really stressful to me. How can we come to a compromise here so that you get the information you need, but I don't feel like a crazy person?
Yeah. Yeah, I think lack of communication is a huge, huge issue around boundaries.
Absolutely. But so many people don't recognize that they need those boundaries. And then here's the second piece. They feel guilty asking for them.
Yeah. It's like we're not worthy of setting those boundaries. We're not worthy of, having our own limits.
Exactly. And in business, we tell ourselves this story that if I set myself these boundaries, I am repelling business.
Yes. But you're not. You're just kind of training your clients how to work with you and what's acceptable and what's not, and what you can give and what you can't give.
Exactly. And you're setting healthy boundaries around your own energies so that you still have some left for yourself, you still have some left for creative innovation in your business, and that you're not just feeling like all of your energies are pulled in 700 different directions when that's not really what you agreed to.
Exactly. And I think that's so easy to do as a solopreneur. So, getting back to the whole vacation taking strategy, you said to be authentic with your clients and to set boundaries ahead of time, which I think is so, so vital. What else would you suggest?
It's pretty easy these days to get yourself set up technologically with apps, with, programming in your blog posts ahead of time so that your business can still maintain its online presence without you there. So most of us have a blog server, for example, that we can program in our blog posts to post ahead of time. A lot of us also use things like FeedBurner or Hootsuite that we can program in kind of a social media presence ahead of time as well. Honestly, that's important. However, you want to be really choosy about what you post on your social media presence while you're gone. You don't want to post anything super juicy that lots of people are going to be responding to and asking you questions, and there are crickets on the other end because you're not online. But posting your blog post links, things like this, that can all still happen while you're gone if you set aside a good chunk of time to write the blog posts ahead of time, to get the social media stuff in there ahead of time. That part can continue running itself while you're gone.
And I think that goes along with what you said earlier about setting boundaries ahead of time. And you can also inform your clients and your readers and the people that follow you on social media, look, I'm going to be away from this date to that date. I have all my stuff scheduled out, but I won't be around to be having conversations. So I look forward to, having a chat with you when I get back, but letting them know as well that you will be away.
Exactly. Then they won't be left scratching their heads.
Exactly. She's tweeting, but yet she's not responding to me. And she keeps tweeting, but she's still not responding to me.
Exactly. And to that end, some of us will benefit from using a virtual assistant.
Yes.
It depends on how intensive the workload is on your end. If you have a lot of products that are not automated in terms of your client can't hit the PayPal button and automatically get sent whatever product it is they're offering or they're purchasing rather, it may behoove you to use a virtual assistant at least during the time that you're gone so that all of those things continue to happen so that your client doesn't purchase a product and then nothing happens until 2 weeks later and you're responding to your emails going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you didn't get your product 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that doesn't reflect very well on you.
No. And again, that's something to do well in advance so that you can really train up your virtual assistant so that they're solid and they're ready to take over that end of your business while you're gone.
Excellent. Very good point, because they do need training. It's not like you can just kind of dump everything onto them and say, just deal with this.
Right. Absolutely. And then kind of a more esoteric thing that I like to recommend to people about taking vacations is you really have to fully let go. If you are spending your vacation constantly thinking about your business or scheming about your business or planning for your business, you haven't fully let go. And then you're not going to feel as refreshed and as inspired and energized to come back to your business in the end. Your business also needs some space from you, I think.
I agree.
It needs some space to expand on its own. As I wrote in the post that on Kate's blog, for me, every time I've taken a significant vacation from my business, something super cool has happened on the other end.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, well, I haven't been there. Actually, the email that I got from you about doing this podcast came while I was away from my business for 7 days.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if you give your business some space, if you give yourself some space from your business, you each might grow a little bit on your own.
I love that. And do you have any tips about how to avoid the urge to check emails, social media, and all that stuff while you're on vacation?
Ooh, good question.
Because it can
Go
be
on
so
vacation
addictive.
somewhere you can't.
Yes, exactly.
That's all about personal boundaries as well. That's about respecting yourself, respecting your own personal boundaries. Also realizing that the world will keep on spinning if you are not on Facebook.
Yes, exactly. I think a lot of people have fear of missing out, but really, the world goes on without you.
Yeah. And honestly, for me, the more I do this, the more I step away from my business, which I do it a fair amount, a few days here, a few days there down in Costa Rica. The more I step away, the more I realize, things don't crash and burn when I leave the helm. All right, great. I can do this more often. So if that's something that a business owner is really worried about, if this is the first time that you have stepped away from your business, try it for a weekend. Just fully step away from your business for a weekend. Give yourself 2 days and just see what happens. Kind of work yourself up into that comfort level where you can feel confident stepping away for 7 days, stepping away for 2 weeks, whatever your vacation fancy might be, and work yourself up to that space where you recognize, I don't have to check my emails for that amount of time. I don't have to check my social media for that amount of time, and things do not fall apart.
I love that advice. I implemented a personal policy, I think it was last year, about not even turning my computer on the weekends. So that's been
fantastic.
A huge, huge difference in my energy levels, because I realized if I just do a little bit of work on the weekends, then I'm just not as refreshed on Monday to get going. But if I have kept the computer off on the weekend, then I'm just so excited to get back into my business on Monday.
Exactly. And to see what happened while you were gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Love your suggestions. What about after you get back from vacation and, maybe your VA couldn't take care of all the emails and you've got kind of a pile up of stuff to answer? How would you recommend dealing with that kind of overwhelm of coming back to, or fear of coming back to, a lot of pile up that's happened when you were away?
The fear of coming back to a lot of pile up can be taken care of ahead of time just by doing your homework before you go, prepping your clients, prepping your website, prepping your social media, all that sort of stuff can really help prevent that from happening if you're conscious about it. Dealing with the potential pileup, I'm a big fan of the 25-minute approach, where you say, okay, look, I have this big pileup of emails. I'm going to give myself 25 minutes and just tackle what I can. And then I'm going to take a break. And I'm going to do something else that's more inspiring for me in the moment. This is also a great place to use that authenticity. I'm a big fan of writing emails to people, just a quick sentence saying, hey, I got your email. I just got back from my great vacation and blah, blah, blah. And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Just so that they feel acknowledged, they feel heard, they know what you're up to, and they're not sitting there going, wow, why hasn't Holly gotten back to me? I know she's back from vacation.
And she's overwhelmed. Yeah, I think that's a great, great tip. I think that's very, very important. And that all goes back to communication. Maybe you don't have to write out the huge 5-paragraph email response, but you can just say, hey, look, I got your email. I'll get back to you in, 2 days or whatever.
Exactly. And they feel heard. You feel like you did something about it rather than just let it float out there in the ether.
Yeah, very, very good point. So, Heather, why don't you tell us a little bit more about how you work with people? You're very much about the heart-centered life, which I love. So tell us a little bit about that.
The women who I work with primarily have strayed from how their heart, how their inner guide wants them to be living. So they're feeling confused, they're feeling unsatisfied with their life, they're feeling frustrated because there's all this stuff that they want to be doing, that they've craved in their lives, but for some reason they just haven't been able to take the steps to make that happen. For a lot of them, there's some sort of limiting belief that they don't feel like they can have it. So there's this kind of banging my head up against the wall, I don't really like my life feeling. So what I work with women to do is to clear away all of that clutter, all of the shoulds, all of the this is how my life is going to be forever, all of the things that they've taken on that are really clouding their ability to hear that inner guidance, to hear that heart center, and how it's directing them, how it's calling them to live. And once we clear away all of that clutter, that voice becomes so clear and so strong, and they feel so much more authentic. They feel so much more themselves. They feel so much more confident and focused. They have so much more energy. It's really amazing what happens when you just start listening to your heart, when you start listening to your inner guide.
Sorry to interrupt. I love the way you express that, because I think I was at a point several years ago where I had no idea what my heart was saying. I had no idea what my inner guide was saying. I was just so lost in myself. And I love the way you focus on clearing the clutter of all the stuff that isn't you and the stuff that you don't need, and the shoulds and the musts and all of that, because it can be such a long process if you don't have a process.
Exactly. And somebody else just to mirror that for you. Someone else to say, what I hear you saying is actually this, and this are not what you really want in your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need that permission. We need someone else to say, that's okay that you don't want those things in your life. Let's figure out what you do want in your life and focus on how to get that.
I love that. So how can other women in business benefit from working with you? I see you do one-to-one coaching.
I do one-to-one coaching. I also do intensives, and I'm working on a few other different processes that'll be coming out soon. When I primarily work with coaches, it's in two ways, or business women, actually. One is women who are just starting out in their business, and they want to make sure they are developing a business process and a lifestyle that is actually going to feel good for them, rather than feeling like I'm trying to fit myself into some sort of mold, but I feel like I'm fighting the whole way against what my heart actually wants me to be doing. I'm having anxiety, I'm having frustration, it just doesn't feel right. So I work with those women to develop a lifestyle and a business approach that is actually in alignment with how they need and want to be living.
Excellent.
I also work with business owners who are more settled in their business. Their business is more long-term. They have more experience. Maybe they've been doing it for a few years, but they're in some sort of transition. They want to change something. Either their business is ready to evolve, or they're stuck. Something isn't working. And so we look at how the guidance of their heart and their intuition can be used as a tool to direct that transformation and to direct that change in a way that is really utilizing their best assets as a person, their most authentic truth, and then again, how their heart really is calling them to live. Because I really do believe if we're all living and practicing business in alignment with what our heart is calling us to be doing, we are fulfilling our purpose in the universe, and that the universe is just going to reward us appropriately.
I love that, and I totally agree with you. You have such a lovely way of describing it all. So, Heather, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
I have kind of a funny collection of women business mentors. Actually, when I was thinking about this, the first woman business mentor that I ever had was my naturopath here in town. And it's funny, she was with me through the whole time I was transitioning into coaching. And she was one of the first people who ever told me, you have to do this your way. Stop comparing yourself to all the other people out there who are doing this, and do this your way. Otherwise, you're making yourself crazy, and that's not fun. Also, as we both know, Kate Swoboda, Kate Courageous, was an early mentor in my coaching career, and she has continued to be a great role model for me, as especially now as she's having a baby. Watching her create her boundaries around her business that way has been very, very important, and is a very important line that a lot of women in the entrepreneurial world are crossing right now. Is, okay, I'm having a baby. How is my business going to change as a result? What sort of boundaries am I going to choose? In the yogi world, both Shiva Ray and Anna Forrest are both, I wouldn't say they're mentors, but I really honor the way that they have both completely authentically shown themselves in their full, like, warrior priestess personalities in the yoga world, because they're not just fitness yoga. They are fully being their kind of eccentric yogini selves. And I really honor that out there in the world of yoga these days.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course.
So Heather, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you?
You can find me at www.heatherdaywellness.com, also on Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, and you can get those links on the upper right-hand corner of my site.
Excellent. And you also have a free 3-part meditation course that can be downloaded. Is that true?
I do. So one of the primary things I work with my clients first and foremost is to look at their fears, to look at their doubts, and then to tap into that inner wisdom that we all have. And so this 3-part meditation series gets that process started, and you can do it at home. They're all very short meditations to get you a little taste for what this process is like.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great to talk to you, Holly.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit sociallyholistic.com/SHP54 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Socially Holistic Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. Please help us help more women in business by giving us a 5-star review of this podcast. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more successful businesses there will be. So please leave a 5-star review today over at iTunes. Thank you.